There are heavy spoilers for Resident Evil Village in this video, so if you want my spoiler-free recommendation, then you should only buy Village for full price if you plan on getting the Platinum, or if you want to play Reverse. All 5 of you. Otherwise, if you just plan on playing it once, then you should probably wait for a price drop to about $40 or so. And if you want to know how I came to that conclusion, then watch the rest of the video. Just remember, spoilers. Village is an extremely fun story that does not waste any moment. From one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my entire fucking life, to one of my favorite dumb fun boss fights probably in gaming history. While I can't comment much on Village being a narrative direct sequel to 7, since, confession time, I've never played my copy before this video, but as another installment in the franchise, 8 does enough remixing to feel like it belongs alongside its brethren, especially when it comes to gameplay. Reeling it back to the game's story and setting, 8's foundation is as old as time, with the biggest inspirations being 1 and 4. From the suspenseful horror of the Village, Castle Dimitrescu, and the House Benevento, to the heavy action focus of the final act, Village still kept me interested from start to finish. I liked the idea behind the 4 lords as well as all of the lore retcons. It's just kinda obvious that some were given more love than others, like the time that's taken with Lady D, Heisenberg, Ethan being revealed to be a mold thing, juxtaposed against Moreau's 20 minutes of screen time and finding out that Miranda was the inspiration to the founder of Umbrella, through a completely missable note. Despite what all the promotional material made it seem like, Chris isn't present for a majority of the game. He shows up like 3 times until Ethan dies the first time, or is that the second time? Anyways, it's when he takes over as our protagonist for like 10 minutes. Then Ethan dies again, only for Chris to show up in the final cutscene, then the game ends. Much like Lady Dimitrescu, I loved what they brought to the game, I just expected more from them, almost entirely due to how the game was marketed, but that should be expected by this point, unfortunately. I really like the ending, where Resident Evil makes the bold move of killing off a main protagonist for the purpose of the overall narrative. He didn't like vanish from the series like all these other people did. He's like really fucking dead. Ethan's death initially felt anticlimactic, especially since I've never completed Biohazard firsthand. But in terms of what 8 was going for as an individual story, I think it did really well. It's a chance for Ethan to finally rest after going through hell and high water twice for his family. When it comes to gameplay, Village is the closest I've personally seen the Resident Evil series get to merging the 2 biggest parts of the fandom, both action and survival horror. Like I previously mentioned, Village may not be doing a whole lot of innovation, but it does recreation very well, specifically from Resident Evil 4 and 7. The opening alone is an almost beat-for-beat recreation of 4's once you get into the Village, but it doesn't feel tacky. It feels close to home while not being too obnoxious about it. Same with the castle being the old shtick of being stuck in a big residence, solving puzzles and killing not zombies, all whilst dodging an invincible stalker. Listen, if you liked 7's perspective and 4's focus on action, then I think Village will be your cup of tea. Or beer, or whatever the fuck you drink. The gameplay actually shines the brightest when it comes to the Mercenaries mode, which is the first time it's been integrated in a mainline Resi game since 6 was released back in 2012. It's a game mode that's meant to be learned and mastered over and over and over again until you're perfect. But don't get it twisted. Mercenaries mode is not ridiculously restrictive on what you can and can't do. There's a ton of breathing room for completely different playstyles and strategies, but it is pretty difficult, mostly just trying to keep a consistent combo. But it's difficult in a way that it's definitely your fault why you got that shitty score. Enemies don't spawn all at once, the combo meter will disappear unless you keep killing, which will destroy your score. You only start out with the standard piece of crap Lemmy handgun, and pretty much it's all up to you to make do with what you have. Country girls make do. I hate that Facebook has forced that image to be singed into my eyes, man. I can't. Village also offers an extra content shop, similar to the remakes where you can unlock more bonus stuff as you complete achievements. As much as I appreciate the variety of infinite ammo weapons you can unlock, there's a few quality of life additions that I wish were included, like in 3-Make, where you were able to buy bolt cutters and a reusable lockpick, completely shaving off the time it'd take to retrieve them, which was almost required for speedruns. Like, imagine if you were able to buy the 6-winged Unborn key, instead of just rebuilding it all over again. You'd still have to go to each lord and collect a piece of rose, you just wouldn't have to do it in a very specific order anymore. I do understand that this would kind of break the game away from the developer's initial vision, but isn't that what infinite ammo weapons already do? The only real problem I have with this game is the lack of replayability, at least for me personally. When I say this game has no replayability, what I mean is that there's little to nothing else new you can get out of this overall experience, beyond difficulty changes that is. It's the difference between replaying something like Halo and God of War. While they're both stagnant and don't really change, you can still have a fun and yet slightly different experience out of Halo each time you revisit it, as opposed to God of War. And for me, Resident Evil Village leans a little bit more towards that latter category. On paper, Village has some of the most expansive content in order to get you replaying the game, and all that stuff is great. As a matter of fact, it's amazing. It makes the game more than worth that $60 for those who want to squeeze every cent out of it. I just have the same personal grievance with Village that I kind of had with 2 Remake. That being that since the game was based around a lot of cinematic scares, with there being a lot of moments where you're chased by some monster, that initial fear is lost and what's left is padding, which in my opinion does sour replayability a bit, especially with Village. Since there's just a gaggle of moments where Ethan's running, or he's walking slowly, or he's being chased. As much as I want to pin it on Lady D's castle, Heisenberg's factory, or the baby, it's not just one specific moment for me. I haven't even mentioned the gameplay's labyrinthian design that's meant for lengthy exploration. The point is that majority of this game felt like it was made for the initial experience, not for repeat viewings. Hence why I've platinumed 3 Remake and not any of the others that I've completed. Hate it all you want, but for me, that game has the perfect balance of learning patterns while always maintaining its fun factor. Don't get me wrong, I still adore the Resident Evil series and I still love Village a lot. But the fact is that this game doesn't feel like it was really made with that staple Resi replayability, at least in my mind. That doesn't mean that I'll never play it again, it just means that it feels harder to do so. So bye bye Platinum Trophy, I guess I'll never be getting you. Shut the fuck up! In my last Resi video, I ignored Resistance, the online multiplayer mode for Resident Evil 3. Mostly because I don't like isometric multiplayer. I don't even like multiplayer that much. And I really didn't feel like spending extra on PlayStation Plus on top of already buying Resident Evil 3 for a mode that I knew that I'd just end up hating. But this time, Reverse is a symmetrical multiplayer mode that solely consists of famous Resident Evil characters. Plus, the day after I got my copy, PlayStation just so happened to have a free online multiplayer weekend. I mean, the stars were aligned, I can't pass up free shit. So, I downloaded all 7 GB of Reverse. And when I booted up the game, it seems like I was the only person in the entire universe who didn't know that Reverse was delayed, with absolutely no concrete release date in sight. Meaning that I'll probably have to come back for late summer or fall to make a second video completely dedicated to this. That blows. Resident Evil Village is a great game that is worth the $60 if you're a longtime Resident Evil fan, and especially if you plan on getting your money's worth. It's one of the best looking cross-gen games that I've ever seen, despite some pop-in. The main story is good, the extra content is there, and you do get Reverse, which isn't a bad thing or a good thing frankly right now. It's just kind of a thing. But if you're not a big fan of the series, then you should definitely wait on this. Also, you could quite literally play any other Resident Evil as your introduction. You could play the first game, you could play 4, you could play 7, who cares, they're all there in the PS4, you dingus. But anyways, that's all I got to say about Resident Evil Village. Like, subscribe, and all that jazz. I'll catch you guys next time. Later, kids. Have a good night.
As the midnight moon rises on black wings, we await the light at the end. In life and in death, glory to Mother Miranda.